Hey, Brandon. So there's a lot of people who don't want to follow Christianity because of the Crusades and because they blame Christianity for, like, for instance, those Mexicans, like, not me, but some, they don't want to follow Christianity because of what the Romans did. The same thing with the Native Americans. What do you got to say about that?
Anything that we see after Christ had been sacrificed, we now have a higher standard to be a servant to our enemies. Full stop. Too many people today think that they can be violent and they can stick up and defend for the name of Christ, and that they have an inherent freedom to freedom, basically. And God says that it doesn't matter if you're a slave, it doesn't matter if you're a free man, it doesn't matter where you are. You can be a Christian wherever and working for whoever, or in bondage wherever, and it doesn't matter, right? Our citizenship is in the kingdom that's to come. It's not here on this earth. And so one of the things that people need to realize is the Crusades weren't in line with Scripture. Nowhere in Jesus' ministry are we told to go out and fight and shed blood for the sake of progressing Christianity. We're told that we are to serve our enemies and to show them love and to pray for them and to be kind. And I would say, show to me logically and reasonably how you can love your enemy while you kill them, because you can't. You have to draw the line and be consistent in what you see in Scripture. And everything after Christ's crucifixion tells us that we have to love. We have to show honor to all men, regardless of whether or not they want us to die or whether we believe differently.
So what would you...
That's the testimony that we have that Christ has changed us. We're different.
What would you say to somebody that tries to use the Old Testament as when the Father asked Israel to conquer other tribes, and they'll try to use that as an example for what the Romans did?
I would say they're generally, I mean, if you're going to try and put that kind of an argument together, you're really cherry picking to back up your ideology. Because we can see that the promises and the direction for that to take place were for a specific time to clean out the land that God had promised, and that what didn't happen successfully. And so now we see the future promise that Christ is going to do that. That's not our responsibility, right? We see that in the book of Obadiah, right? We see the prophecy that Christ is going to come back and clean house and take care of the Edomites because of what had happened in that process. So we know that God's going to take care of it, and our purpose is to spread the good news and show the testimony of what God has done in our life. And by killing other people, we're no better than the pagans who do the same. So we're not called to do that.
Last question. What would you say to somebody that's struggling with that? Like, it's so dumb, but some people actually say, I'm not going to follow white Jesus. We know he wasn't white, but like, what would you tell them?
I say they need to be, that is the result and the fruit of someone who has a very shallow or immature walk, and they need to basically develop some spiritual discernment. You know, some wisdom and understanding to see the things that we should be looking at spiritually, that it's the inward, that it's not the outward, that it's the testimony and the change and the new nature that we're given through Christ, and not the outward actions. And so people who get caught up on that stuff, I feel like are, you know, they're kind of birds of a feather. You know, they find other people that generally tend to believe the same way that they do, so they don't have to change their mind. But we're supposed to be objective in what Scripture says, and not only in parts of it, but in the entirety. Right? We see Christ is moving forward. It's a new standard that we've been given with the Holy Spirit. So looking at the Old Testament and trying to hold those standards to our lives basically walks us away from salvation by doing that. And that includes trying to hold to the standards of the directions that God gave to the Israelites for a specific time and purpose.
Well, I got another question.
Yeah.
So at the end, when the Lord comes back, is there going to be a physical war, or is it just by his mouth, by the sword?
It's interesting to me. A lot of Christians have this perception that Jesus is struggling, or that there's this struggle with Satan, because, like, that's kind of how it's described within Scripture. But we see that by the breath of his mouth, he wins. Right? The Creator that we serve, his Son, will not struggle in the end battle. He will win with the power of the words of his mouth. There will not be, he will not lose lives in the battle. It will not be a struggle like we picture in movies, like when you see these old movies and these battles of these people in the ancient days. That's not how it works.
So what about that verse where he comes into what mountain is that, Keith? And there's like blood everywhere.
So he returns to the Mount of Olives from the east after cleaning out the land of Edom, and he's got blood on his robe because he's gone and fulfilled what he said he would do.
Physical death, but it's not. No one on God's side loses or gets injured.
Yeah, it's not.
He speaks the word and they die.
Yep. He's by the power of his word is what Scripture says they die, and so the wicked, those against Jesus there will be physical death, right? We're told in Scripture that there's basically two deaths. First death, and then the second one is destruction if you've chosen to reject Christ. But as Christians, we're free from that. We don't have to worry about it. So while there will be physical death, there will be no struggle. And that's something we should understand, is that the God we serve is all-powerful and will not struggle to defeat Satan and the people who are wicked.